Hi guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to be talking about the 3 niches that you need to absolutely avoid as a beginner social media marketing agency. So guys, if you're new to the channel, my name's Harry Kirk. This channel is run alongside Tom Ford. We are co-owners of the digital marketing agency. We've ran together for the past 2 years, but prior to those 2 years, we had separate agencies for 2 years prior to that. So we've been in the agency game a long time, and the niches or niches, if you're in the US or other parts of the world, they're the ones that have been more attractive to beginners have changed over those 4 years, and I want this video to be all about what niches are really tough for not only beginners to sign clients in, but also get results in. So it's all well and good you signing, loads of clients, but if you can't keep those clients because those niches are extremely difficult for beginner agencies to get results for, then they're not the type of niches that you want to be going after. And the first one I want to go through is e-commerce brands. So if you're a beginner agency, you've never worked with any businesses before, you've never run any Facebook ad campaigns for businesses, you've never had a client before, then I would seriously recommend staying away from e-commerce brands and just going for lead generation businesses. And people always give you the option, are you going to go after local lead generation businesses, or are you going to go after e-commerce brands? And when people say local lead gen, it shouldn't mean local to your local area. In my opinion, and the way when I say local lead gen, I just mean lead generation businesses like a dentist, like a dermatologist, like a kitchen fitter, a law firm, in local communities in the US, in the UK, in Europe, so the businesses can afford you, rather than your online e-commerce brands. And the reason for that is there's 2 reasons. Number one, e-commerce brand owners are way more difficult to get hold of than local lead gen business owners, because a lot of the time local lead gen business owners are working in the business, there and then. You can get hold of their mobile number, whereas e-commerce brands are more difficult to get hold of. They're not impossible to. You can use LinkedIn, you can use Google, you can use Companies House if you're in the UK, or other governmental websites. There's loads of strategies to find out e-commerce brand owners. However, to get it in bulk, which is what you need, you need leads in bulk when you're a beginner. Going after lead generation businesses is going to be a lot easier to build qualified lead lists for. Not only that, the e-commerce brand owners are going to be a lot harder to sell to, for a number of different reasons. Furthermore, when you actually do sign one of those clients, an e-commerce brand is going to be a lot harder to get results for when you're a beginner. And the reason for that is you've got to compare what the jobs are in comparison from a lead gen business to an e-commerce brand, which is when you work with a lead generation business, you get a sales funnel up, you get some ads up, you get some ads to that lead generation funnel up, and you bring in leads for them. And that's how you get an ROI, providing that those leads then convert into paying customers. However, when you're working with an e-commerce brand, you can't just bring in leads. You can't just bring in, page visitors. You can see directly how much money your ads are bringing in. And it's also a lot more complex. To run ads for an e-commerce brand, you need to understand website conversion rates. You need to understand how to structure a product page. You need to understand content a lot more. Content is going to be a lot more crucial in the success of an e-commerce brand's marketing campaign on social media in comparison to a lead generation business. For a lead generation business, for example, a dentist, you can get away with, not stock imagery, but just an image with some text over it. Whereas for an e-commerce brand, launching an e-commerce brand on social media for the first time using paid ads, and you're getting a static image up with a bit of text over it, it's going to be physically impossible for you to scale that long term. It really is, which is why when you work with an e-commerce brand, you need to have a content strategy. You potentially need to work with some micro influencers, depending on the brand. You need to have a lot more creatives. Your ad campaigns need to be more in detail. Retargeting's is going to be more crucial in the campaign in comparison to a lead gen campaign. There's lots of things that happen in an e-commerce brand's social media marketing ad campaigns that you don't have to do on a lead gen basis. So when you're a beginner going into this, you've got to think, right, I'm a beginner here. I'm not too familiar with, I may have run a few Facebook ads before in the past, or I'm familiar with the platform, but am I going to want to throw myself in the deep end? And that really what e-commerce brands are now, is throwing it in the deep end, because the tracking on Facebook and Instagrams, got on a lot worse after iOS 14, which e-commerce brands were hit with a lot more because they rely on that tracking to retarget and so on. Whereas lead gen, it's important to retarget because that's where you're going to get really cheap leads. However, you can get away in majority of industries without retargeting and just pushing cold traffic to your landing page, providing the sales funnels structured correctly, and you'll bring in, sub $10 leads. However, with an e-commerce brand, you just can't do that. You have to have all of your pillars in your marketing strategy aligned, and it's going to be a lot harder to get results. So I'd stick with lead generation businesses until you have a thorough understanding of, you're a true expert. And we always say, don't sign a client until you're, any client at all, until you're an expert in Facebook ads, sales funnel creation, email marketing. However, there's levels to it. There's expert in terms of you can handle a lead generation client, but the step up from that is how to handle an e-commerce client and handle an e-commerce client long term. Sure, you could sign them for a 3-month deal and then lose them. If you want to have a high churn agency and have a shit brand, go for it. But if you want to keep these clients long term and you want to have a strong brand, your agency is a strong brand, then I'd stay away from e-commerce brands initially until you have that expert knowledge. The second industry I want to go through, which I would avoid as a beginner, is dentists. And this might surprise you. And if you're a beginner going after dentists, you don't have to listen to me, but just take the advice on board and potentially shift what you're doing. So the reason why I'd say stay away from dentists if you're a beginner, and I don't want this to sound like I'm, telling you to go away from for businesses that Tom and I are signing up. Full transparency, we've signed 2 dentists in the beginning of this year, and we're doing an incredible job for them. The reason why I'm saying as a beginner, stay away from them while we're signing them is, like, if you're an expert, go for dentists. Still, because it's a great industry to go for. However, if you're a beginner, you are going to find it more difficult just because in social media marketing and in this, the YouTube space with gurus teaching content like this on YouTube and on TikTok, etc., there's kind of phases of what businesses are popular and what businesses gurus like to tell people to go after. And probably 2.5 years ago, probably 2.5 to 3.5 years ago, everyone said go after dentists. Dentists were like the hottest thing ever, and they people still talk about them very heavily. They're probably in people's top 5 industries to discuss and tell people to go after. However, because it was so hot 2.5 years ago, unless you're going after a brand new dentist, all of the existing dentists that have been around for like 10, 15 years, they've kind of heard it all. They've heard the sales spiel. They've heard, they understand what Facebook ads are. Majority of dentist owners now understand Google ads. They understand Facebook ads. So when you come along as a beginner, that's probably the biggest industry that you now get asked for testimonials for, which is, as a beginner, you want to kind of stay away from that. And, there's strategies around that. However, I think there's certain businesses and certain industries now that have become so aware of the social media marketing space, and understand these services, they're just not willing to work with a beginner. You have to have a strong brand if you want to be charging the types of prices that you can charge a dentist, like $1,500 a month. Which is why I stay away from it. So it's not telling you to stay away from it for any other reason that you can't get them results or that industry's dead. It really isn't. It's thriving. It's just going to be harder for you as a beginner with no previous testimonials, no case studies, no experience, and no results to leverage in order to sign that client to make it worthwhile, if that makes sense. But if you do have testimonials and you do have, experience, and you can handle yourself in a meeting when those questions come to you, because I guarantee if you have any presentation with a dentist, your chances of being asked for a testimonial are going to probably 3x any other industry. So yeah, so that's number 2. Number 3 is life coaches. Now, we've worked over the past 3 and a bit years, coming up to 4 years now. We've worked with a handful of life coaches, and I often get messages from beginners saying, "Harry, I'm going after life coaches because there's loads of them on Instagram. People like doing Instagram outreach because they don't have to do the hard stuff like cold calling." It's a bit of a cop out, but online coaches are a great industry to go after. If you're a beginner, go after online coaches in all kinds of different sub industries. However, the sub industry within online coaches of being a life coach, I would recommend you seriously stay away from as a beginner social media marketing agency owner. And the reason being, a majority of life coaches don't have a very good life coaching business. And if you're a life coach listening to this, hopefully you don't take offense to this. And we've worked with some incredible life coaches. And that's not to say all life coaches are like that. However, a lot of them they don't have an existing business. They're kind of showcasing something that's not actually real. So they don't have that many previous case studies in terms of clients that they're working with. A lot of them do have the money to invest, which is attractive to a social media marketing agency owner, because that's not an issue whether they have money to invest. It's more the fact that the actual business that the foundations their business sit on are extremely poor. So if you do sign a startup life coach that's never had a client before, and suddenly they're like, right, I'm going to create a life coaching program for $10,000, and you've got to market it. It's going to be extremely difficult for you to market a life coaching business that has no testimonials, no real experience. They've just watched a few, Tony Robbins Netflix series, and they're like, I want to be a life coach, which is what majority of life coaches are. So I would try and stay away from it purely down to the fact it's going to be tough to get results, not only because the foundations of their business, majority of life coaches' businesses aren't very good, but also because this is going to sound, but also because majority of life coaches, they don't actually have their life together themselves, and they're putting on a massive front on social media. So when you dive into it, their life's an absolute shit show. They have no time to put into it. The infrastructure around their business isn't put together at all, so they don't really have an offer. So a lot of what you'll do when you work with a life coach is marketing consultancy. So it's building new products, it's building new services, it's structuring a value ladder for that business. And unless you're not an expert, but unless you've been around the block, for a while in the social media marketing space, it's going to be difficult for you to supply that consultancy, especially if you're not an expert in the online coach industry. And that's irrespective of life coaches. If you're in that online coach industry, you have to, more so than any other industry, you have to be an expert in what's the most popular course platform, how do courses sell, because that's a completely different strategy to a lead gen strategy, but it's a really good niche once you're an expert in it, but it does take a lot longer to become an expert. But the niche I do want to talk about in my final point is life coaches. So to summarize those reasons, it's that they don't have their shit together a lot of the time. There's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built around it. So you're going to have to build multiple sales funnels. You're probably going to have to help them put their course together properly. Lots and lots of consultancy needed to get it off the ground. They don't have very good foundations of their business, so they don't have testimonials. They don't have previous work that you're gonna, that's exactly how you sell an online coach, which is through testimonials, reviews, and previous work and transformations. And life coaches as an industry is an industry where 90% of them have no previous work, because like I say, they've watched the Tony Robbins episode, they want to become a life coach, they've created an Instagram, they've got a load of money to invest, but you could invest 200 grand into some of these life coaching businesses and they wouldn't get anywhere. So it's tough. I just wanted to point out those three niches that I personally would stay away from as a beginner until you get to a point where you have the expertise to be able to deal with those clients. Like I say, all three of those incredible niches to go after if you're an expert, but if you were a beginner, I would stay away from them because there are a lot easier niches that you can go after, that you can get quicker and easier results for, and grow your business that way. And then you can go into these other industries and kind of unlock those niches once you've got the expertise and the knowledge of how to do so. Because you don't want to work with them right off the bat, do a terrible job for them. You get a morale and motivation hit because you've not done a good job. The relationship's probably gone badly, and then you get really demotivated in your agency. So stick to something that you can get results for initially, and then move into that once you get better results. But I hope you enjoyed that video, guys. If you've not watched our previous video, the previous video was on why consistency is the most important attribute you can have in your social media marketing agency, and how to stay consistent going through your agency, what I did when I first started, to stay consistent, and what the impact on my agency consistency had. Super good video. Give it a watch. Please make sure you subscribe. Continually follow us on Apple Music and Spotify for the podcast. And yeah, we'll see you tomorrow for tomorrow's video.